What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, first of all, welcome. And second of all, my name is Drew, and this is where I discuss a bunch of higher education topics that includes things from current events to best practices for students and staff, and really kind of how to navigate the college experience. And in this video, I have another book review for you, and it is called An Insider's Guide to University Administration by Daniel Grassian or Grassian. And I don't quite know how to pronounce that correctly, and I do apologize to the author because people do this to my name. So moving forward in this video, I will just refer to Daniel as the author. Now, this book is what it says it is. It's an insider's guide to university administration, and it is written through the lens of someone who has risen up through the ranks of faculty into a senior leader role. And that's exactly what this author did. So the narrative or the tone of this book is for the aspiring senior leader and all of the things to consider. And to start right away, I loved it. I thought this was spot on in so many ways. And in many chapters, I couldn't put it down because it felt like it was really speaking to some of my experiences and what I had observed through my own roles in leadership and also my experiences with senior leaders. And it's amazing because the introduction starts off with a very realistic scenario as if you were in a leadership role. So I knew right away that there was credibility to this book and what the author was saying because he was speaking to me. And the first chapter I thought was also spot on because it talked about the different kinds of personalities that you will encounter in the role of a senior leader. And there are no shortages of interesting personalities in the workplace. So I loved reading about this chapter. It definitely gave me some insight and then also some things to consider in terms of how I interact with those personalities and how those personalities react to me. Now, there were a bunch of other chapters that covered things such as fundraising and budget management. How do you implement a vision? And here's a quick note. You have to have a vision and it can't be mundane. That is one major takeaway from that chapter, and the chapter explains why. So this is another valuable piece of information in this book. There was a chapter that talked about crises and crisis management. What happens when students start to protest a speaker that the college or the university has invited to campus? Or what do you do when students start accusing a faculty member of improper grading? There is no shortage of crises in higher education today, so this was a great primer in what to expect and how to utilize resources in navigating those issues. There were a few chapters, I think, that were more of the social side, similar to the first chapter with the personalities, but it talked about how people view you as a leader, so sort of the direct reports. So what do they want from you? How will they react to your expectations passed down to them? And there are also some other things about making yourself available. So making yourself available to hear concerns from staff and faculty in your leadership role, as well as making yourself available to students. The book also talked about some caveats as to why this is important, but also why you shouldn't make yourself entirely available. And I have seen this play out in real life. So again, that's another credit to the legitimacy of this book and what the author has written. And then it also has a chapter that talks about closing equity gaps and diversity and inclusion and how you can't just say you're aiming for it if you don't have measurable goals, and that if you're not assessing that and actually making progress towards that. So if you couldn't tell by now, one of the things that I appreciated the most about this book is that it speaks from experience. It does not talk about all of the things that leadership textbooks talk about. You can tell this is coming from someone who has experienced these things firsthand, and these are the things that no one else talks about. These are really only the things you can kind of learn from experiencing it yourself. So this is, well, it's an insider's guide. I felt like I had the inside track in at least getting a head start of knowing what's ahead of me if I choose to take larger roles with greater responsibility in my career and what's going to come with that, the good and inevitably the bad. So this was a great book. My one concern And it's not really a concern, but the one observation I had is that this is written through the eyes, or rather the author was a faculty member and stepped into a senior leader role. Now, he does address if you are coming from a student affairs background and how you could step into a similar leadership role without any issues. But where it started to kind of separate, and this is from my perspective working in student affairs, is some of the issues that the author talked about where a new senior leader would be experiencing resistance or really trying to struggle to figure it out. To me, coming from the student affairs perspective, that would be common knowledge, or that would be a certain issue in which I have dealt with that on the daily. So it wouldn't be really a crisis to me, or it wouldn't be an issue that's difficult to navigate. Now, on the other hand, when you step into senior leadership roles, you may be trying to manage faculty. So if you have a student affairs background, you don't really have experience in rallying and managing and getting buy-in from faculty. Whereas if you were coming from the faculty ranks, you may have experience with that if you were a department chair, for example. So it's really depending on your background. Some things may be easy, some things may be difficult. It really just depends. So it's not really a critique of the book. It's just offering one perspective without giving too much credit to the other perspective. But again, I don't think that was a huge detractor in what I pulled from this book. So I like a lot of the books that I read. It's really why I do these reviews, but this one is probably now in my top 5 of favorites because I found a value in it immediately. And I know this is where I may be headed. So that was also important to me as well. So if you are in a senior leader role, I think you can find this valuable. And if you're looking to step into a senior leader role, get yourself a copy of this book. So as always, I hope you liked that. And if you want to see more book reviews, make sure you hit subscribe. If you like this video in particular, make sure you hit the like button or even share it with someone who may find this to be interesting as well. And as always, I will catch you in the next one.